that's amazing that you just did one thing and you stuck with it and you had the tenacity. I think a lot of agents, they get on a path, right? And then they like shiny object their way through it. And ultimately that distraction is quite expensive. I'd love to hear you talk about two things. One is, how'd you stay focused? Like how did you keep yourself narrow on those key activities? And then second is, as you started to scale up, there's this natural pivot that agents have to learn how to make called like going from doing business with your aunt to doing business with people you've never met. And it's a different set of skills. Yeah. So like, just talk to us about those two things.
Yeah. And I didn't have any of those skills. I hired a coach, and I remember telling my coach, like, every objective that a real estate agent gets, I would just ask him, and I would just say like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. He's like, oh, I have the perfect rebuttal for that. Let me talk you through it. So it took about a year of like getting those down. But to answer the first part of the question, for whatever reason, I think the reason is because I listened to a lot of Gary Keller, and Gary Keller like preached this message that, if you focus on the right lead generation every day and you do it consistently, that it will pay off over time. And I just believed that. And so I had taken enough time to set up my own game, which was how many conversations do I need to have every day? How many appointments do I need to set every day? And I just believed that if I was consistent in that, it would pay off over time. And by the way, like somebody told me I had these big goals, and one of my coaches told me back at the time, they said, you will probably be disappointed in what you achieve in 1 year, but you will be blown away by what you can achieve in 5 years. And I don't know how, I guess I only remember it because it ended up being true for me. I didn't hit the targets that I wanted in the first year, but 5 years later, my world was so much bigger than anything I had ever imagined for it to be when I had gotten started. And so I was just committed to those inputs. And I've built many different sales teams since I was doing that myself. And it's always been the same thing. It's like, what is the daily commitment that has to happen such that by doing that, all the other dominoes will just fall into place? And then how do we laser focus on that daily commitment? And the challenge as a real estate agent is our jobs are broad. We're doing we got to make offers, show houses, go to inspections, go to closings, call past clients. Like there's like so many different things. And I was not always the best at all of those things. What I was the best at was having the same amount of conversations every single day without fail. I drew like a very bright line for myself. And it was just like, I will not complete my day of work until I do that. And it was just like a total commitment. Like if you're into fitness or if you're into like eating healthy or whatever, it's the same thing. It's just like when you make a total commitment to something, it's not a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Like right now I'm trying to lose weight. So I've like completely cut out bread because bread and chips are like something that's like really bad for me. And I've dropped 15 pounds in like no time. And I had been stagnant at this weight that I was unhappy about for a long time. But just like drawing that bright line and like absolute commitment to it and doing that over a consistent period, over a period of time, it starts to drive results. And you can watch those results. They don't show up on day one, but you can start to watch them. And for me, I think the thing that kept me going was that the results did start to come. And then they constantly got better and they got better and they got better. And I started to realize that I don't have to improve my daily commitment to improve my results in an unlimited way. If I just keep my daily commitment, the results will continue going up and to the right. So that's what it was. Like people at my office thought I was a weirdo. I wasn't out and about doing the typical things a real estate agent does. And I started hiring people as soon as I could possibly afford it, because I knew that if I distracted myself with all of the things that are required from a real estate agent, that I would not be able to be consistent. And so, I made some early moves. I hired an assistant in 2011, I think. So like right after my first full year, hired him part-time. I couldn't afford a full-time assistant. Hired somebody from within my office because, I got somebody who knew real estate, who wasn't making a ton of money, but who was willing, he was already on commission. So he was willing to take some level of guaranteed pay. So it was like an easy way to make a first hire. And I basically offloaded all of the administrative things that weren't like super high priority, non-client communications and non-lead generation. And that just kept me streamlined. And then I was able to turn that into full-time. And then I hired a second assistant, and that person became a client communications person. And so now I had sort of back office and client communications, and it allowed me to continue hammering that nail on the thing that was most important. And the money kept showing up. So then the third thing I did was I hired somebody to go show houses. I'd only, the year I did 70 sales, I think like 10 of them were buyers and like 60 of them were listings. And it was because I was leaving low-hanging fruit all over the place. I wasn't even answering my sign calls or my, internet leads or anything. I was just hammering my one thing home. And I recognized that I was leaving opportunity on the table. So I hired somebody to show property. So that meant I could start answering sign calls because I would, I actually would have somebody that could service them. But I maintained kind of the sales job of it. And then over time, I worked on turning that person into a full-on buyer's agent who would then take those sign calls and manage that part of the sale. And then I hired a third admin. So then I had 3 administrative support and 1 buyer's agent. It was just one piece at a time. I kept cranking, and maybe 3 years into it, probably I hired my first inside sales person, and I didn't stop doing the job then either. I literally was just side by side with them, doing it together for about 6 months. And I had become a machine at the time. Like I couldn't do this today, but I had gotten such into a rhythm that I had literally become a machine. So what I was doing in half a day, it would take this person to do in a full day. But as soon as I got to that place, I went, well, I've now replaced what I was doing. It may take them a full day, but I've now officially replaced it. And then I stopped. And so I pulled back. And that's when I was able to, I basically had a full 50 hours a week again. And the nail was still getting hammered every single day. And then I got to start thinking like a business person. And that was when I got that time back, I was able to start actually going, okay, I'm no longer coming into the office every day just thinking about this one thing and hammering it in. I now get to think about how do we turn this thing into a business? And that's when sort of my career started to shift.
That's amazing. And so sort of just to play that back, you figured out early on that like I love how you said like you were hammering the nail, and that's just some number of conversations you were having every single day.
Yeah. At my best, it was 100. At my worst, it was 20. But it was never less than 20. And so, and that's like, I have salespeople today that struggle to get, 10 in a full day. And it's part of it's being really skilled and experienced. Part of it's having the right systems and tools. I look at it and I go, oh my gosh, we have totally set up some of our salespeople for failure by not giving them the right tools, the right data. I worked my way into it. When I first started, I was making 0 conversations a day, and I worked my way up to like 20 was the minimum. But I was able to get to this place of being a machine because I also, in the process, was building a system. And, I eventually every day I had updated data. I basically had it automated. I had it scrubbed. I had it like, all the right pieces. I had the right system and tools and technology. I had the right process and how I would move leads down my funnel. It didn't happen overnight. It certainly took me time to get there. But yeah, it was just got to that place of like, there is a minimum standard here of effort. And I know that as long as we hit that minimum standard of effort, I know generally what's going to come down the funnel from there. If we can get better skilled, if we can get luckier, get better data, get higher quality leads, all these numbers can improve. But in a base, I know what minimum effort's going to get me, and I can build a business off of that.